Thank you very much for the invitation. It's actually kind of nice to talk to so many people because I spent the whole morning talking to, I don't know, 8 to 10, which is also nice, of course, but with a larger audience, there might be, the chance might be a little bit greater that actually the whole user-centered design thought gets spread out a little bit more. Yeah, who am I? Just a few quick words. I'm teaching at the University of Applied Sciences, Technikum Wien. I'm not only teaching there, I'm also involved in quite a lot of research projects, have been involved over the last few years, especially in the terms of medical and telehealth environment, as well as nowadays for rehabilitation purposes. So we're now, for example, working on in a project for rehab at home. How can you do rehabilitation? The project is called rehabilitation, that's why I'm so confused. Rehabilitation methods at home from the clinic, and do that in an easy way so that people who get out of a clinic and have to do their exercises can use technology easy to use technology, like for example the Microsoft Kinect or the Microsoft Band or the Wii Balance Board or whatever, to do their exercises at home in a measurable way so that we can transfer the data back to the clinic and tell whether or not people are doing their exercises right or whether the exercises actually work. Because what happens nowadays, I don't know if you, hopefully you haven't, but nowadays quite often you get a sheet of paper which tells you, well, do those 4 exercises within the next 6 weeks and then come back, and hopefully something has improved. And we're trying to do that in a more with some technology that could help the users. That's what the talk is all about. So why user-centered design? Very good question. Why should we do that? What do most systems not cope with? It's error. The problem is we do have a lot of systems built on perfect cases where everything goes right, and if everything goes along as we expected, the user interaction is kind of streamlined and everything works out fine. And as soon as the user apparently does something wrong, clicks on the wrong button or understands some part of the system in the wrong way, we come into the state where we have to handle with complex error messages, error IDs. The user doesn't really know anymore what actually happened, why did this error occur, and most importantly, how can you cope, how can you recover from the error? That's something very human, because even experts, even you, we click on the wrong button, we do something wrong, we delete something unintentionally, and later on we would be happy if that could be undone, but it's not possible, or it's just, we're confused, why did that happen, and how can I go one step back? And a lot of system designs don't really work with that, and don't rely on the human part of human-computer interaction, and that's what we're talking about. In the end, it's communication between one human part and one whatever technology part. So whatever it is, it's an application, it's a website, it's classic software, it's hardware, it's your car, whatever it is. You do have a human part and a machine part, and that machine part should be, you should be able to communicate with that part in a natural, for you, natural way, and that's a human interaction. Let me give you an example. Hopefully, at least some of you do know what kind of device that is. In case you don't, that's a defibrillator. So in case of an emergency, if somebody goes into cardiac arrest, that's a medical device that's being used to help you get out of that state. What it does, what the name says, it defibrillates. It tries to give you one shock, one actual electrical pulse to reduce some kind of arrhythmic heart rate, or whatever your heart is doing right now, and trying to set it back to a normal rhythm. That's the basic idea. What's the problem with that? Well, normally, if somebody really has, that's an emergency situation, and if you really have to use that kind of device, well, you're not going to be very cool and reading through instructions and trying to do the right thing. You're going to be the one, well, is there a defibrillator nearby? Bring it to me. quite often that's your first time use of this kind of device. You know, your last first aid course is long gone, and you probably only heard of these devices, or you have never seen this exact device, because that's quite often. Of course, you've probably seen one, but there are a lot of devices out there. And yes, bring me the defibrillator. And then, yeah, you're in a stressy situation. There is somebody who really needs help, immediately needs help, and you have to use actually a rather complex medical emergency product for the first time ever. How does it work? Well, actually, the system design is made and streamlined in a way that you can't do a lot wrong, because there is no possibility to go on a wrong way. First of all, if you open the box, nowadays there isn't even a power switch anymore. There are a lot of devices nowadays mounted on walls or whatever, and as soon as you remove the device from the wall, it actually starts its own internal procedure and actually powers on the device. So there's not even the need for a power button anymore. What they also do nowadays, at least in some projects they already do, we have it in Vienna as well for some cases, they immediately also start a connection to the emergency service. So you don't need to do an emergency call. They actually they have a SIM card installed, and they actually know where you remove the device and where you're going with the device, and they can also talk to you in case you need additional help. So that's actually a mobile phone as well. So you don't have to remember, you don't have to have your smartphone in one hand and the device in the other hand, because you have already an up and running connection. And then the only thing the device says is, well, please be so kind as to connect these pads onto the patient. There is actually only one way to put them, as the image says, and even if you're really in a hurry and you do expect that there is not a lot of time to use the device, not a lot can go wrong in the end. Well, it's a sticker. You throw away the plastic, and then you put the sticker on, and that's it. So basically, there is not a lot to go wrong. Also, these devices, as soon as you put the pads on, they automatically switch into the analysis mode. So there's no button for analyze now, because I connected them in the right way. It just skips that part, but because you could forget the step. That's quite a big chance that you're in the hurry while you connect the pads, and then you wait for what to do now and whatever. So as soon as you connect these pads, the system automatically starts and says, I'm analyzing the patient, away with your hands. That's the only thing it tells you. It says that 2 times, and then it tells you either I'm going to shock, or shock is suggested. And as soon as it tells you that, there only then in the new systems, the only button, there's only one button, starts to flash, and it's a red button, and it's a big button, and it tells you shock now, and don't touch the patient. That's the only thing, that's the only interaction you can actually do. Or it tells you don't shock, continue with classic CPR, 30 to 2. But that's the only thing, the only possible interaction. And then it counts for itself up until 2 minutes, because the phases between analysis should be 2 minutes. And then does the overall thing again. So it always tells you what to do, when to do it, and there is no escape route. There is no going the wrong way, going the wrong path, doing something wrong. There are also some nice images as well. If you need them, normally it really shouts at you. That's also another thing, because in a laboratory environment, it would probably be okay if the system just told you in a normal voice what to do. But the scenario would probably more likely be, I don't know, on the subway somewhere in the outdoors with 20 people very helpful around telling you a lot of good things to do, as always. So it really shouts at you and it tells you exactly what to do in which step, and there is no escaping. What can we learn from that? Oh yeah, it also beeps in the right rhythm in the meantime. So this little thing, it tells you how your compressions are, and it also tells you the correct rhythm 100 times per minute. So you can't even do that wrong anymore, because it knows the compression port for an adult is basically always the same. So it knows between the pads which compression and how often, how fast, and there's not a lot to go wrong. But we could build in a lot of options. It could be a power button. There could be a language switch at the beginning. What language would you like to use me in? Yes, of course, we are in Vienna, and there could be a tourist using the system. True, but in the end, it's more likely that somebody around will speak German, and therefore no possibilities, nothing to go wrong. Because the worst thing that could happen is you start the device, it switches through some kind of language selection, and then you end up with, I don't know, Spanish. Well, yeah, and how to go back from Spanish and whatever, and how to reconfigure it. Time. Time is of essence here, and therefore no selection. The analysis we were talking about. The pads know automatically what to do and when to do it. So no need for a button there. And also, what to do next, only one button. That button is important because if somebody touches the patient, it's probably not a good idea during shock. But everything else is very streamlined. What can we learn from that, or what can we take away from such an emergency device? Really rethink, are all these possibilities for all your users necessary? Is it really necessary that your users have all the power in the world to change whatever in the interface, even if it doesn't make any sense at all? Or could we reduce complexity, and could we reduce possibilities to actually make mistakes a little bit, and therefore have create less possible errors, and also have fewer possibilities to go the wrong way? We do live in a world where every new product has to have more and more features. We compete with each other in terms of who has more features and more advanced features and whatever. But probably it's a good way to, at least for the beginners, start with a really, really simple, your main scenario, whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to design. Show them your main example, which is your main key feature. Show that in a good and slow way, and then add something and some complexity later on. But start with one basic setup and one basic use. That's actually a good idea. What happens if you don't do that? Well, you will know that. We have too many features for everybody, and therefore people do customization their own ways, whatever that might mean. So, yeah, it's not a bad example. It's actually somebody else did the actual design for whoever is using the remote now. But why not? I mean, we did the same, not the same, but something really similar within a research project where we just removed several keys from a wireless numpad so that only 4 keys were left. Well, then they're only your 4 keys, and if we only use those 4 keys, you can't press the wrong key. Why not? So, yeah. It's a quality attribute you're talking about. Usability, user experience, whatever you want to. The overall experience when people are using your system is a quality attribute. And it significantly increases your customer satisfaction and sales and whatever you're aiming for. Productivity, we'll come to that. Whatever you're doing, it significantly increases, good usability significantly increases your outcome. And it's not about, I'm not talking about what kind of design or theme or whatever should I use. It's really about what kind of functionality, is the functionality designed and arranged in a way that your actual users are, whoever you're using the system, are feeling good, are feeling satisfied while using the system, and can work and can do that efficiently and effectively. That's the main point. It's not about how red and how green should something look like. Yeah, we already had that. There is often not a lot of room for error. It doesn't only have to be medical environment. It could also be something else. But quite often, you don't want people to get into some error states, because then you have to tell people how to get out of that state. It takes time, it costs money. So why not only make options possible that are actually there, that are possible within system design? Yeah, bad reviews, we all know that. I mean, who installed, I don't know, some kind of calendar app on his phone that has 2.5 stars? Well, does have to have some really, really nice features. So that's not very likely. And in the end, if you don't do it, somebody else will do it. Nowadays, we are connected, we're communicating in every possible way. So as soon as the word gets out that there's another application that's even easier to use, then you're, well, quite often done. So think about that. In terms of user experience, a quick personal example. I was looking for an engagement ring 2 years ago. Quite personal example, actually. Looking through several jeweler stores, also online. I thought, well, why not? You can buy everything online. Why not search for engagement rings online? And I found some nice rings I was interested in. And as quite often with jewelry, they don't tell you the price. So they just tell you, well, what it looks like and what the ingredients are and why it's so special. And then they tell you, that's in German, but I can translate, it's rather easy. You have to ask them for pricing and whatever they have it on stash. So I found that quite okay. You also could create your own list of things you're interested in and add 3 or 4 rings and then send an email telling them, well, please be so kind as to tell me what these rings cost. Quite easy. I found it actually quite okay. Main problem, I got that answer email. Yes, of course, on the one hand, they are rather pricey, but that's not the main problem. The main problem is, well, which ring was it? I mean, I'm very sorry, but there was no such number, as in Elvis's song, and no such ring, because I really don't know what kind of rings I'm talking about here. There is no such number in the first place, and they are not arranged in a way, and there's no picture here. So that's really, really useless. And yes, it's an extreme example, but on the other hand, we're talking high-price segments here. That's something that shouldn't. Why did that happen? That shouldn't happen, but it still does. And I'm pretty sure you're all aware of your own experiences where it did happen, even in a high-class environment. And that's something we should really take care about. And one good opportunity, one good way of not letting that happen is, well, try that out before you actually set the shop online. Invite some users, let them shop for some rings, let them work with the website as they want to work with that, as they are used to that, and then ask them whether they're okay with that or not. That could have been easily removed. Pardon?
This is user error. This is written by them.
Oh, yes, it is, yes.
I know because I wrote this web page.
So we have a lot to talk about later on. No, okay. No, that's okay. No, it's nothing bad. It's just that it could have been, in my opinion, it could have been prevented rather easily. It's not a big deal actually, but that's one of the main points of what should we do. There are a lot of, I'm pretty sure you are or not aware. There are a lot of very intelligent people out there. Jacob Nielsen, Steve Krug, Donald Norman, Alan Cooper, whatever. There are a lot of good books out there which are really an easy read and a nice read. So if you haven't found time yet, then at least look for Steve Krug. There are two books that are really, really interesting. They are a subway read, like twice to your work and back, and you're through. And they are still very good. Very good experience. Yeah. Don't guess how people are and what they do. Please really observe them. We are very creative. And we do things we would never expect. So therefore, yeah, really observe what people are doing. Your users, on the one hand, your users are always right. If they tell you that some functionality is kind of gone off wrong or whatever, then, well, it's their right to tell you that. It's not something you can say, well, you didn't use it the right way. That's no option. On the other hand, you can't just ask them. If you ask people, well, what would you like to have? You end up with a huge list of features that they actually don't like. They just don't know it yet because they haven't seen it in the way that's out there. So do a quick prototype, do small iterations of prototypes with just a few users, and see what they really think about the product and whether or not they even still like it or they want something completely else. Yeah, reduce features. So in the end, all the features that are not being used make your good features worse. So therefore, think about what's actually the key ingredient, and then only add that you really want to leave there, because everything else makes the good things worse, and that's a pity. Yeah, we had that. It's not a big deal, but details matter because they sum up. One small detail that doesn't work okay, not a big deal. 2, a little bit frustrating. 3, well, that's yeah, really frustrating, and so on. But it's always the small things. I've never seen a project where it was an overall not usable experience at all. It's always small steps that get you that you become more and more frustrated. And yes, it's process. The first time it always goes wrong, and therefore make first steps small iterations, small prototype, test it very quickly, just a few users, and then learn from your experience, learn from these first steps. It's not a big deal. It can't go, or doesn't necessarily need to go right for the first time. Why should you do that? Yeah, increase in actually kind of everything. Depends on what you're aiming for. The most interesting thing I find is feature use, because that's bad in 2 ways. On the one hand, people don't use the features right now because apparently they don't know how to use it. And on the other hand, it took time to implement those features. So you implemented features people don't use, and they apparently confuse, they might even confuse other features, people from other features that they want to use. So that's 3 times actually worse. So think about that, and as all the wise people in the world tell you, or might tell you, about 10% of thoughts, overall thoughts for users, including testing, writing prototypes and stuff like that, is something you could aim for. At least try something a little bit in that direction that would make things, could and would make things a lot easier. And that's 20 minutes. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it interesting. Let's go for some questions. Why? Yeah, true. I think how? Well, first of all, there are a lot of guidelines out there that you should observe. That could be technical guidelines, like, for example, whatever you're aiming for, web applications, smartphone applications, whatever you're designing for. You're probably not the first one. And there are a lot of standards and guidelines out there that you could use, like, for example, Android, iOS, whatever, human interface, human interaction guidelines. They are one good starting point. The other good starting point is something like, for example, from all the experts I was talking about early on, there is something called heuristic evaluation, and something like these heuristics are like general guidelines, not for the technical part, but for the human part of every design. So therefore, they make sure that you, for example, thought about informing the user about all the time what's actually happening right now in the system, because we, in terms of communication, always want to get something back. So as soon as we start some kind of interaction with the system, app, website, whatever, we want to have some immediate feedback. Yes, no, maybe, should I wait? Are you telling me something? Should I wait for your response? So these guidelines are also a good aiming point. And yes, there is no magic behind that. You should just do it. I don't know why so many people, why so few people actually do it. Because yes, small prototypes, small iterations, and then really test it and get the design going. That's actually, it's not a big deal, and I'm still not sure why it's around, why it's so uncommon. Well, I think that. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Ooh, no. Neglected in projects. Why? Well, no. Okay. It's complicated. Actually, quite hard. How to handle different target groups? Yes, of course. If you know about there is something, another method, we could enhance the why discussion a little bit further. If you are aware of different target groups, there's on the one hand something probably quite old as well, called personas, where you could concentrate your target group attributes into one or more fictional characters who you can rely on. And then I would suggest that you, of course, do all the testing for the target groups you're actually aiming for. So if you do know that you have beginners and advanced users, then yes, do the tests twice, of course. You have to do the iterations for your beginners group, where you actually aim for, well, how do people start working with your system, and how do they get to know the system. And then you have the advanced group, who actually, I don't know, know the former systems or who are experts in their field, and tend to tell you, well, how is an experienced user, how is the interface for an experienced user, which possibilities are there in terms of personalization, customization, stuff like that. So yes, different target groups means you have to do the testing more often. Yes, well, I would rely on labor testing in terms of if you're really testing your overall project, in terms of you really want to get to know what people think about your current system, in terms of what kind of you want to talk to them. You really want to see them in person, then, which is good for first stages of testing. Then I would suggest real. Doesn't have to be labor, it's laboratory, yeah, whatever, laboratory. You should invite them, or you should get in contact with them personally. Laboratory could also mean, labor testing is somewhat off. Laboratory or testing in a lab quite often means going to them at their office. So there is the lab is something rather artificial. Yet you can use the lab, yes, of course. But I would suggest using the normal environment, so natural environment for testing, and that could be their own office, could be in the field, could be whatever, on the subway. So yes, I would do the testing for qualitative and very personal feedback there. And for smaller features where I'm not sure which is being used more or less, I would do that online. Also, you need quite a lot more people for the online A/B testing. Whereas for the qualitative part of testing, you're fine with, if you're good, you're fine with, I don't know, 5 to 7 people for one round from one target group for one design.
So thank you, Benedikt, for the amazing talk about user-centered design.
Thank you.